2 days after a boy fell into the Provo River and died, the city is taking action to keep people safe from the swift water.
A Cedar City man convicted of murder nearly 25 years ago gets a death warrant and an execution date.
We are tracking a lot of heat here across the state this week. Plus, we saw a few isolated thunderstorms today with some lightning and strong wind. What to expect through the rest of tonight, and also when we could maybe hit 100 degrees here in Salt Lake City.
How much will it cost to host another Olympic Games here in Utah? The Salt Lake City, Utah Committee for the Games has a budget. We'll show you the numbers.
2 bear sightings in 24 hours here in Park City. We spoke to the man who saw it.
Live from Utah's news leader, Fox 13 News at 9 starts right now.
Good evening, everyone, and thank you for joining us tonight. I'm Kelly Chapman. Bob has the night off. This weekend was tragic in Utah County. Not one, but 2 fatal incidents involving swift-moving water in the outdoors. The mother of the 12-year-old boy who drowned near Bridal Veil Falls identified him as Finley Udall. The family was visiting Utah from Arizona. The mom thanked first responders on Instagram and wrote, quote, "The water levels were so high and fast, and it was just impossible to get to him." The Utah County Sheriff's Office says the woman found dead near Horsetail Falls was 19-year-old Cynthia Ann Grimwood of Springville. Other hikers alerted authorities after finding a phone near the falls with a video showing a woman getting into the river. These incidents raising a red flag for officials and residents alike. The city of Provo now taking action to keep people safe from the swift water. Fox 13 News reporter Jenna Bree shows us how.
I've lived by this river my whole life, and I can't remember the last time I've seen it this high. It's going super fast.
High water levels forcing some Provo residents to change their plans Monday afternoon.
We were gonna park over there and walk from there, but we had to come over to this parking lot because we can't get through it so high.
While many fear the strong current, others think the fast pace is exciting.
Usually just looks exciting to me, having it flow pretty quickly and having the water level pretty high.
The city closing multiple Provo River Parkway trail crossings this week.
Sometimes with these high water, we end up having water going into those tunnels, and we close those off so that people know not to go in there. And we're encouraging people to stay away from the river as much as possible so we don't have the fatalities and other problems that we've had earlier this week.
There are currently 4 closed trail crossings: the Geneva Road, Front Runner, and 2230 North undercrossings, and the Canyon Glen Bridge.
The peak looked like it's gone, so we're not so concerned with flooding at this point. But our major concern is the high water flow in the river and safety to people that are using the river, that are accessing near the river.
Those taking to the water using extra caution.
Know where you're going and exactly what you're doing. We also told family and relatives that what we're doing and where we're going to be, and with life jackets, make sure the raft's inflated as much as it should be.
Gordon Haight says tunnel flooding is normal in non-drought years, and the tunnels should be open by next week.
We love this trail because it gives residents easy access to the river. We don't put fences or barriers. There's something wonderful about walking next to water. And so we just encourage people as they're using the trail to use common sense. Don't go down into the river. Don't try to get too close to it. Just enjoy it.
In Provo, Jenna Bree, Fox 13 News, Utah.
A man nearly drowned at Echo State Park over the weekend. According to the Echo State Park manager, a group of paddle boarders became stranded around 6:45 p.m. yesterday after their paddle boards got away from them because of the severe weather. All but one of the paddle boarders were able to swim to shore. The last remaining paddle boarder had to hold on to a buoy to stay afloat until bystanders were able to swim out to rescue him. First responders had to take him to the hospital for treatment. We're told the man's injuries were serious, but not life-threatening. Now to an update on the Rockville fire near Zion. It's burned an estimated 72 acres since starting on Friday. It's now 100% contained tonight. This means there is a fuel break, meaning minimal to no vegetation completely around the fire. Firefighters are continuing to monitor the area. I know with the heat we're about to experience statewide, fire danger is high right now, Allison.
Certainly something to consider as we head into the next couple of weeks and months, and just heat safety in general. Temperatures right now still in the 80s in Salt Lake. As you get ready for bed, might be hard to cool the house off the next couple of nights with our temperatures, especially across southern Utah. 93 currently in St. George at 9 o'clock at night with a lot of heat on the way. So here's what's been issued so far. An excessive heat watch for the Lake Powell area heading into Wednesday and Thursday, highs near 105. Overnight temperatures in the 70s, so hardly any relief overnight. For Salt Lake City, we'll see our temperatures dropping into the mid-60s early tomorrow morning, but quickly by 8 o'clock tomorrow morning, we are back into the 70s here in Salt Lake City with a hot day ahead of us tomorrow, but by Wednesday and Thursday, that heat really ramps up here across the state. As we look at the wind gust forecast, things will be a little breezy tomorrow, particularly into eastern Utah and southern Wyoming. Evanston about 25 miles per hour. And our temperatures are going to be likely our hottest that we've seen so far this year here in northern Utah. Heading into Wednesday and Thursday, we could hit 100 degrees for the first time this year. We'll have more on that coming up.
Nearly 25 years after the original crime, a judge today signed a death warrant to execute a Cedar City man for murder. Barring any legal surprises, Tabaron Honey will be executed in just a couple of months. Fox 13 News political reporter Ben Winslow is in Cedar City with more.
Tabaron Honey is fighting plans to execute him by lethal injection.
The Department of Corrections seeks to execute Mr. Honey with an experimental cocktail of lethal injection drugs that have never before been used.
Honey was convicted of the 1998 murder of Claudia Ben. Her throat was slit and she'd been sexually assaulted. He's exhausted all of his appeals, but Honey's lawyers argue there are still concerns. The state of Utah is trying a new drug cocktail, and his lawyers argue they're entitled to know more about that.
The Department of Corrections has consistently maintained that it will not change its execution protocol. And it's done this because it knows that if it changes or amends its execution protocol, it'll reset the statute of limitations.
That's something lawyers for the Utah Department of Corrections vehemently opposed.
There's no reason to update it. There's no need to update it.
This kind of trickery to, try and fudge things so that they don't have to update the protocol like everybody else does in this country, it's not appropriate given the magnitude.
Honey is also part of a lawsuit by a group of death row inmates challenging Utah's execution methods and protocols. Another judge rejected their claims.
Didn't Judge Sanchez rule a new protocol with a new drug could be the basis for a future Eighth Amendment claim?
That's possible, but she ruled that they're on notice that this protocol, that other substances could be used. She's already ruled on that. It's already in the protocol itself. But whether it possibly could, perhaps.
But the Utah Attorney General's office says all of this is not enough to delay setting an execution date.
This proceeding is ministerial in nature.
The judge agreed, setting an execution for August 8th.
My focus has to be very narrow.
He gave Honey the option to choose his method of execution again, lethal injection or firing squad. Honey declined.
Then the court is going to rule that the decision was made 25 odd years ago when no decision was made, and that the execution will be by lethal injection.
Outside of court, Honey's attorney told me he will appeal the judge's death warrant to the Utah Supreme Court. That and the other litigation challenging capital punishment currently before the state's top court could lead to delays in any upcoming execution. In Cedar City, Ben Winslow, Fox 13 News, Utah.
Coming up in a Fox 13 News exclusive, hear from one of the people who rescued a family from the Colorado River after their kayak overturned. Plus, a massive mudslide made quite a mess of Wyoming's Teton Pass. How long the cleanup process is going to take.
Zach Blair will play in his third U.S. Open this week. Coming up, I caught up with the Utah native after today's practice round at Pinehurst #2 to talk about playing in this major tournament.
Today was debate day for the Utah Republican Party, which has a number of races in the upcoming election, including governor, attorney general, as well as congressional seats. The big debate in prime time was the one for the seat Utah Senator Mitt Romney is vacating. Utah Congressman John Curtis, Riverton Mayor Trent Staggs, former Utah House Speaker Brad Wilson, and businessman Jason Walton all participated and spoke on a number of issues, including the federal debt, reproductive rights, and immigration.
And what the cartels are getting is more than a 20-fold increase in human trafficking revenue and a 20-fold increase in the fentanyl and meth and heroin drug trafficking revenue. It's not right. And at what cost? This sick political trade is costing tens of thousands of Americans' lives.
We've had tens plus million of illegal immigrants flood into this country, creating a humanitarian crisis and a security crisis that we are all aware of. It's very simple. The border needs to be closed. We do need to reinstate the Remain in Mexico policy. And I do think we need to finish building the wall.
How would we fix this? I have a bill. It's called a state-sponsored visa bill. It would actually give visas to governors around the United States that were separate from the federal visas that they manage themselves. They would be responsible for monitoring people that came into the state and how these visas were used.
The solution is simple. Build the border wall, remain in Mexico, e-verify, and cutting off any benefits to illegal immigrants. When you do that, they will largely self-deport, I believe, and the problem will start to correct itself.
The candidates also hit on water usage here in our rapidly growing state, also how important water issues are, and that it is one of their top priorities to fix. There were also two debates earlier in the day for Utah's 1st and 2nd congressional seats that are up for grabs. Incumbent Congresswoman Celeste Malloy debated with challenger Colby Jenkins, and Congressman Blake Moore debated with challenger Paul Miller. You can watch both of these debates in their entirety on our website, fox13now.com. All of these races will come to a head at the all-important primary elections on June 25th. And after that, it is just over 5 months until the general election. Our Path to the White House series is going in depth each week on 10 major issues on the presidential campaign. This week is the economy. Tomorrow on Fox 13 News at 9, we'll share a discussion with experts and community stakeholders here in Utah on the issue. You may remember this bizarre story from last week of the first ever black bear sighting within Salt Lake City limits. It was stuck up in a man's tree in his yard for hours until local biologists got it out. Now we've learned that there have been 2 bear sightings in the past 24 hours in Park City. Fox 13 News reporter Emily Tenser spoke to one of the men who saw it from his home.
At the Daily Trail in Park City, you'll find a number of hikers, dogs, and cyclists enjoying the outdoors.
It's crazy. There's a lot of traffic coming up through here.
Doyle Dameron is keeping a close eye on his golden retriever Sophie after he saw a bear in the area Sunday.
Just kind of loping his way up the side of the mountain and not caring a thing about me, going away from me.
Lieutenant Jay Randall with Park City Police says there were 2 sightings in 24 hours. It's not certain if there were 2 sightings of the same bear or if there's 2 of them.
As soon as we get another sighting that we can actually substantiate for sure, then we'll try to get a geographic location that they can maybe come and trap and relocate that bear.
The sightings don't scare hiker Maria Gornieri, who carries bear spray and knows how to use it.
You don't want to spray it up in the air. You actually want to spray it down at the ground because usually that's where the bears are at. And then it takes a little while for it to traject up.
Black bears are the only species here in Utah. Just last week, one was removed and relocated from Salt Lake City limits for the first time ever.
And then there's also a misnomer too with black bears. They're not all black. So there's brown black bears, there's cinnamon black bears.
That's definitely what this was, you know, kind of a cinnamon color to it.
Dameron's lived here for 16 years, and this was his first time seeing one.
No other big precautions around here, but maybe a little more now.
If a black bear attacks, the rule is to fight back and never give up. Even pick up anything you can find, whether that's rocks or even throwing your water bottle. And don't try to outclimb or outrun a bear. They can move up to 35 miles per hour. Reporting in Park City, Emily Tenser, Fox 13 News, Utah.
I'll remember those tips, Allison. At least in Park City, I mean, in the mountains, it is expected to see wildlife.
Yeah, you saw a bear one time in the wild.
I saw a bear. I didn't have a rock, I didn't have a water bottle, but I had my mom voice.
Yes, and she scared that bear away.
That was in
Yellowstone,
Teton.
wasn't it? Oh, Grand Teton.
Grand Teton.
Yeah. Wow, that's been a headline the last couple of days, the road up there.
Oh, I know.
Yeah.
I know.
Well, our main weather headline the next couple of days is really going to be the heat. Our first chance to hit 100 degrees here in Salt Lake will be on Wednesday and Thursday. So as you look at the last 7 days, 82 is a normal high this time of year. Yesterday was really close to that century mark at 97. Today we were in the upper 80s, and the heat is really going to be on heading into the middle of this week. So Salt Lake City, yesterday our hottest day so far this year, and then we've got the chance for some triple digits heading into Wednesday and Thursday. 71 currently for the Cache Valley, 81 for Salt Lake, 78 for Price, 93 degrees currently in St. George. So it is still hot in southern Utah. Lake Powell currently 91 degrees. And as we look at satellite and radar here across the state, we've had some additional clouds mainly for the mountains across southern Utah. Those are thinning out with the loss of our daytime heating. We had some weak convection in eastern Utah today, mostly into the eastern Uintas. And as we look at the next couple of hours, our forecast mostly clear, a nice morning tomorrow, and then hot and sunny for the days over the next few afternoons. So temperatures over the next couple of hours here in Salt Lake. It's a beautiful evening right now. We'll drop into the 60s after midnight, and then by 8 o'clock tomorrow morning, we are back into the 70s here in Salt Lake City. So Tuesday, 7 a.m., about 55 to 65 for most of the state. It may be difficult to cool your house down here in Salt Lake tonight with temperatures overnight in the mid 60s for much of the evening. And then St. George tomorrow, you're staying in the 70s overnight. So Wasatch Front tomorrow will have temperatures back into the 80s by lunchtime, and then highs tomorrow into the low 90s. And for St. George, you're going to have your temperatures near 70 degrees when you first wake up, and then rising tomorrow close to 103 to 105 for the next couple of days. So tomorrow here across the state, St. George 104, Salt Lake a high of 91. Looking at our temperatures here across the state at 3 o'clock, we are close to 90 to 95 for much of Utah. And as we look at Futurecast here across the country over the next couple of days, largely we are staying sunny here out west. We could maybe see a few showers firing off tomorrow, again into eastern Utah, central Utah along the higher terrain, but nothing too widespread or problematic in the forecast. The main problem certainly will be our heat. 104 tomorrow for St. George, 105 on Wednesday, 105 on Thursday. Then we'll see a little closed low moving in from Southern California on Friday, and that's going to be enough to knock our temperatures down a few degrees. So we might see a little bit of relief on Friday, but it's still going to be about 100 degrees for St. George on Friday. And then into next week, there's a chance we see a cool down across the region moving in from the northwest. But I want to let you know there's still some model disagreement. So there's the possibility we could see some relief from the extreme heat late weekend into early next week. So stay tuned for that. I don't have a ton of confidence right now, but I'm hoping that I'll gain confidence over the next couple of days with how that's going to play out. But first, let's talk about tomorrow, because tomorrow is going to be sunny, low 90s here in Salt Lake. And then Wednesday and Thursday, those are going to be our next chance to hit the century mark here in Salt Lake. Of the 2 days, if I was a betting woman, I would say Wednesday is probably a slightly higher chance, but either day I would not be surprised if we hit that century mark. So if not 100 degrees, very close to it. And then we'll see a little bit of a cool down on Friday, low 90s, 89 on Saturday, and then closer to average early next week. But again, we're going to put a little asterisk next to that, and we're going to stay tuned and keep track of that forecast heading into the potential cool down early next week. So we'll go ahead and talk a little bit more about the extreme heat over the next few days coming up later in the hour. We'll be right back.
The UN Security Council voted today to endorse a ceasefire plan aimed at ending the 8-month war in Gaza. Today's vote was 14-0, with Russia abstaining. The resolution calls on Hamas to accept the 3-phase plan and to fully implement its terms without delay or condition. The resolution's strong support from the majority of UN Security Council members puts added pressure on both parties to approve the proposal. However, Israeli Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu has said that any talk of a permanent ceasefire before dismantling Hamas's military and governing capabilities is a non-starter. Jury deliberation has begun in Hunter Biden's federal gun trial. Jurors are considering whether the president's son lied on a federal form, saying he was not addicted to drugs when he purchased a revolver in 2018. He faces 3 felony charges in the case. In closing arguments today, the prosecutor told jurors to focus on the overwhelming evidence against Biden and pay no mind to his famous family. Defense attorneys, meanwhile, sought to show that Biden did not consider himself an addict when he filled out the form. A Food and Drug Administration committee has voted unanimously to recommend Eli Lilly's drug to help slow the progression of Alzheimer's disease. An FDA analysis last week revealed no red flags, but raised questions about the safety of the treatment for patients with early-stage disease. Today, the advisors debated whether the drug's benefits outweighed its risks. In a large clinical trial, the drug was able to slow the progression of Alzheimer's by 29%. The full FDA still needs to decide whether to approve the drug.
Rivers and streams running high and fast right now, even here in Murray City Park. I'm Amy Nay, and I'll bring you an amazing story of survival from a rescuer who's just happened to be in the right place at the right time at the Colorado this last week.
Coming up, I'll go in depth on the Salt Lake City, Utah committee for the game's proposed budget for 2034 Winter Games.
A Payson couple's trip to the tire shop took an unusual turn. What they say they'll never do again.
Less than a week away from the official start of monsoon season, I'll let you know how strong that monsoon pattern is going to be and why it sets up.
Stanley Cup playoffs continue. It's game 2 of the finals between Florida and Edmonton. Who comes out on top? I'll have the highlights.
Welcome back, everyone. We are tracking breaking news just into the Fox 13 newsroom coming out of Sandy tonight. We've learned that a man has been sent to the hospital after he was hit by a vehicle. This is a live look at the scene at 1300 East and 106 South. Police say about an hour ago, a 69-year-old man was walking across the street when a driver turning right did not see him and hit him. The victim was taken to IMC in critical condition. The driver is cooperating with police. We, of course, will bring you updates as we learn more. Tonight, we are hearing of a dramatic rescue that played out in the Colorado River in Moab. One of the Good Samaritans that helped save the lives of a family of 3 spoke exclusively today to Fox 13 News anchor Amy Nay.
I think anyone would have done what I did in my situation.
But search and rescue teams from Grand County say Daniel Wright, who just happened to be out on his jet ski on the Colorado River last Thursday, is a hero.
It's been so hot, and I just like the water, so I was just there to play.
Yeah, and then you found yourself kind of in the right place at the right time for this family.
For sure.
Just take a look at these incredible images of those dire moments from Moab resident Eric Odenthal, who just happened to be nearby when a family of kayakers, 8 and 10-year-old boys and their 40-year-old father, overturned their inflatable kayaks and went rushing down the river.
It looked like there was a bunch of debris in the water. It's high water, so there is a lot of debris around, and it looked like that's what it was.
Daniel, a longtime Moab area resident where he runs the company Red Lizard Management, said initially he steered clear until a man on the banks, a former search and rescue volunteer himself, who had just used his paddleboard to get those kids to safety, waved him down to help.
I was just terrified, really, because the guy's head was only partially out of water. And as I was coming over to him, he went under a couple times, and the photo that you see there was just right before I grabbed his hand, and I honestly don't think he was coming back up that time. I mean, and it makes me emotional just to think about it. It was just terrifying, and I feel so blessed. I feel so blessed that God put me there and gave me the senses and the wherewithal to just help.
We're here in the very popular Murray City Park, where the little Cottonwood Creek is running high and fast. There's even a playground right next to it and a warning sign that's posted, you see here, danger, swift current, stay back. But when you're out in the wilderness, there are not always warning signs. Fox 13 News did speak to the other man who helped save that family last week in the Colorado, and he says this happens all too often when people aren't necessarily prepared for the conditions. And as Daniel says, it can all change in an instant.
Things can happen in just a second. It's not just because it's the current out here, although that certainly makes it worse, but I think if you're in water, you should be wearing one.
A properly fit life jacket. Luckily, this family did have some sort of personal flotation device that helped, but the PFDs the boys had actually put their heads under the water. One, according to Grand County SAR, was just a waist device, and the other was too big on him, while the dad had his on his lap and lost it when the kayak overturned.
He wasn't close to getting out on his own. He basically just had given it everything he had, and that was it.
Daniel says it's a good reminder for him, adamant already to wear his life jacket and always requiring his 12-year-old daughter to do so as well. But this experience is one that will stay with him.
I was definitely happy to be part of it, but it still makes me emotional. It still is very scary to just remember that, you know. This water is so dark, and like as soon as you're just a few inches underwater, you're invisible. I mean, it's not like I could have just followed him and seen his body and got it out later. I wouldn't have ever seen him again.
Amy Nay, Fox 13 News, Utah.
Take a look at this video of a road collapse over Teton Pass in Wyoming. This is what Allison was referencing. That state's Department of Transportation is calling it a catastrophic failure. The road first cracked last Thursday when crews patched it. Then on Friday, a mudslide in a different area closed the road. Then Saturday, a landslide caused the entire road to collapse. The road is a well-traveled commuter link between small towns in eastern Idaho and the tourist destination of Jackson. It is a 2-hour detour now if you want to take the long way to get to Jackson, but state engineers are working to fix it.
The surveyors and I, we worked through and designed a new road, so we put that plan into action. The contractor started to do the work that's needed to build our new road. It's a temporary road. It'll be 2 lanes wide. And it should be done in a couple of weeks or so. So it's a huge impact for people right now for the next couple of weeks. But we're moving quickly, working double shift to get this new road built.
Wyoming has issued a state of emergency. The state is also working to get assistance from the Federal Highway Administration for this necessary repair work. New tonight, former Fox News commentator and conservative talk show host Tucker Carlson will speak in Salt Lake City this September. Carlson announced he is taking his show on the road on a 15-city tour, and that includes a stop at the Delta Center on Saturday, September 7th. He'll have special guests at each stop on the tour, and Utah's guest is none other than another former Fox News commentator, Glenn Beck. Tickets go on sale this Friday via SeatGeek and the Delta Center's exclusive ticketing partner. The 2034 Winter Olympic Games might be 10 years away, but the Salt Lake City, Utah Committee for the Games now has an operating budget which comes in at $2.8 billion. Fox 13's Robin Oginye gives us a look at the numbers.
The committee's president says this version of the budget is the 100th iteration of the numbers they gathered, saying as you get more information, plans evolve. They noted that no new permanent venues need to be created for 2034, but there are 40% more events than there were in 2002. So here's a look at how the numbers break down. Venue infrastructure is for what the committee calls temporary overlay because there will be modifications made to existing venues. Sports, games, services, and operations includes everything like food and beverage, security, medical services, logistics, transportation, etc. The committee noted that the budget for technology is large because of the complexity and increased global reach of the games. Ceremonies and culture include the open and closing ceremonies to showcase all things Utah. The committee says it was helpful to use 2002's games as a guide.
We started with a great foundation from our budget in 2002. We made all the changes that update that in terms of 40% more events. We also looked at the modern requirements of the updated requirements from the IOC and IPC. But one of the things we also did was we reached outside experts who have been involved in recent games.
The $2.8 billion budget is part of an overall $3.99 billion budget that includes revenue sharing with the U.S. Olympic and Paralympic Committee, sponsorship fulfillment, sales costs, and legacy funding. The committee will have a follow-up briefing Wednesday with additional information. Robin Oginye, Fox 13 News, Utah.
A Utah couple says after they brought in their truck to be serviced, it was returned to the wrong person. Their story still ahead.
And today was our break from the heat. 88 degrees with much more heat on the way when we could hit 100 degrees here in Salt Lake coming up.
Welcome back, everyone. What should have been a simple drive to bring their truck for tire service ended up taking an unusual turn for a Payson couple. Fox 13 News reporter Darian DeBrule explains how a trip to the tire shop turned into a mess.
When Ward Barton isn't working or watching the Steelers play, he likes to work on his red Titan truck.
He's worked really hard on the truck, not only making sure it's running well and whatnot, but also adding like the lift.
But last weekend, there was something Ward couldn't fix himself. So he dropped his car off for service at Tire Busters. But he says he wasn't the one who picked it up.
I got a call and he said, "Did you send your wife in to pick up your truck?" And I said, "No, it's there to get in alignment. She wouldn't pick it up." And he said, "Well, I guess I better call the police because some strange lady took your truck."
Gabe Dunn owns Tire Busters. He says something like this has never happened before.
It's been a unique experience.
Gabe says the woman came into the shop from this direction. He says she told a worker her car was stranded and she needed a fuel can. When the worker stepped away, she approached a mechanic. Gabe says she told the mechanic the Barton's truck was hers.
He asked a few qualifying questions. She had the answers for him, and he gave her the keys, unfortunately. When he gave her the keys, she got in the vehicle, she took off.
The Unified Police Department found the truck the next morning. The Bartons say the truck is in working condition, but the inside was full of junk. UPD says the circumstances around the incident are still under investigation.
It was so strange, the circumstances and the way we found the truck and the things that were in it. I don't know what to think of it. I don't know who she was or what they were doing with it.
We feel a little bit violated and now we're nervous. We did have to have the locks rekeyed. She locked it and took off with the key.
Gabe says Tire Busters helped pay for some costs associated with the alleged theft. They're also working to increase security measures.
To make sure it never happens again, we make sure that the service advisor is the one that gets the keys and the one that gives the keys to the customer and nobody else.
Tire Busters has since turned the matter over to insurance. The Bartons hope they're compensated for their out-of-pocket costs soon.
We won't ever leave our cars at a mechanic again. No. We will stay there.
In Payson, Darian DeBrule, Fox 13 News, Utah.
It is Monsoon Awareness Week. As monsoon season starts in just 5 days, I'll let you know what to expect this season coming up.
Game 2 of the Stanley Cup Finals tonight. Did the Panthers win on their home ice once again, or did the Oilers tie the series at 1? And we caught up with PGA Tour golfer Zach Blair at today's practice round at Pinehurst number 2 as he gets ready to play in his 3rd U.S. Open.
Well, you started to feel it today. Utah's Weather Authority tracking a lot of heat this week. Meteorologist Allison Krogan joining us once again.
Yes, and I'll have your forecast in just a moment, but first, meteorologist Chris Nunley tells us about monsoons for Monsoon Awareness Week.
The official start of monsoon season is just 5 days out, and this is Monsoon Awareness Week, as we're going to see that monsoonal pattern continue from the middle of this month all the way until the end of September. Now, typically here in Utah, we see the biggest impacts July and August, and southern Utah benefits the most during the monsoon season, typically seen between 20 to 25% of the annual precipitation. A little bit of a different story here in Salt Lake and all of northern Utah. Yes, moisture can be enhanced due to that monsoon, but it typically comes in the form of a frontal system or a low pressure moving in from the Pacific Northwest. This season, monsoon not looking as strong as normal, and the reason why: the Pacific Ocean transitioning from El Nino to La Nina late in the year. That is going to hinder the development and the enhancement of that monsoon pattern. So typically what we see is westerly flow across the desert Southwest, but during the summer we get that strong heating over the desert Southwest. Low pressure establish itself. That kind of taps into some moisture off of the Gulf of California, and then we have a ridge or a strong area of high pressure over the central parts of the country, and that can kind of pull some moisture into the area off of the Gulf of Mexico, and it's like squeezing on a hose that funnels that moisture into Arizona, New Mexico, here in Utah, in Colorado. That leads to increased moisture, increased lift, especially from some of the terrain, and that can lead to increased precipitation and convection. We can see the gusty winds, lightning, as well as small hail, and there's also that possibility some convection doesn't have enough moisture and we see lightning that leads to fires.
Well, temperatures are going to be hot here across the state over the next few days. Right now, it's still warm as you get ready for bed. It's about 80 degrees for Salt Lake, Ogden, and Provo right now. Low 70s for the Cache Valley, 72 for the Uinta Basin, and for St. George, currently 93 degrees. Well, let's talk about tomorrow, because tomorrow temperatures are going to be a little bit warmer. The UV index will be extreme, so make sure you're keeping that in mind as you're planning your day for tomorrow. We've got a lot of heat in the forecast for the next couple of days, especially on Wednesday and Thursday. As our high pressure builds, we're going to be pulling in a southwest flow, and that warm air is really going to help our temperatures rise quite a bit. Now, as we look at our chance for precipitation for the rest of this evening, we had some afternoon showers and thunderstorms, mainly north of Vernal and then into central Utah, down towards the Book Cliffs earlier today, but really things are going to be quite dry through much of our 7-day forecast. As we look at the chance of precipitation for Ogden over the next 7 days, very low. For Provo, same thing. Heading into the next couple of days, you'll see an isolated chance on Friday and Friday night for Utah County. And for St. George, your chance of precipitation also very dry and very hot over the next couple of days. And for Price, you'll see a little bit of a better chance heading into Friday with some widely scattered showers and thunderstorms. Temperatures into tomorrow morning, Tuesday at 7 a.m. about 55 to 65 degrees here across the state, near 70 degrees for tomorrow morning in St. George. Temperatures on the rise into the 90s for the Wasatch Front, even hotter heading into Wednesday and Thursday. Precipitation forecast, all eyes on Florida over the next couple of days, as Southwest Florida could see 5 to 10 inches of precipitation over the course of the next week, much less than that here in Utah. As we look at our chances of precipitation, mainly for the mountains and then into south central Utah, everything in green is less than ½ of an inch, and most of the green shades that you're seeing here about 1/10 of an inch to 1/4 inch. So really not a whole lot of precipitation. Very hot temperatures though, close to 104 to 105 Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday for St. George. A closed low moves in from Southern California on Friday, knocks our temperatures down a little bit, but still a hot weekend ahead for southern Utah and for the Wasatch Front. 91 tomorrow, close to 100 degrees for Wednesday and Thursday. And then we'll also see a little bit of relief late week into early next week. As we look at our chance of precipitation here in Salt Lake City, things are also going to remain rather dry for us here out west. And so as we look at our temperature forecast and our precipitation forecast for beyond the 7-day, things are likely going to be staying hot for week 2. This is the middle part of June, about the 15th through the 24th. We are looking at above average temperatures. Although with that being said, I do want to mention that we could see a cool down early next week, but keep in mind low 80s is what's typical for this time of year. So while we could see a cool down compared to where we are the next couple of days, things could remain at or above average heading into the extended forecast.
Tony Finau and Zach Blair will represent Utah at the U.S. Open this week. This is the 3rd U.S. Open for Zach. I caught up with the current Utah Open champion and former BYU Cougar after today's practice round at the famous Pinehurst No. 2 course, after he went 5 under par in his final 10 holes to win medalist honors at his U.S. Open final qualifying event last week.
I knew I needed to finish pretty strong, and it's always nice to kind of do it when it matters, and always fun to be here.
Now you're back at Pinehurst for the U.S. Open like you were 10 years ago. I mean, talk about a great venue to qualify for.
Yeah, absolutely. I think, one of my favorite golf courses for sure, and, getting to play it in a major and the U.S. Open's even cooler.
This is your third U.S. Open. What's it like playing in this event?
Obviously really cool, kind of the pinnacle of golf, right? One of the 4 majors, the National Open. It's kind of what you dream of as a kid. So, hoping for a good week.
You and Tony Finau representing Utah. Do you take pride in that we're all watching and rooting you on?
Yeah, absolutely. I think I'm actually going out and playing a few holes with him tomorrow. So excited for both of us. And, hopefully, like I said, hopefully we go out and play well.
How do you feel your game is right now? You're coming off a nice finish at the Canadian Open T24, got another top 5 finish with Patrick Fishburne. How do you feel like you're playing right now?
Yeah, I've been playing good, honestly, all year. Just kind of seems like falling asleep for, an hour or 2 or, having a bad day that's kind of killing the week. But, if I can kind of clean that stuff up and sharpen the game a little bit and have 4 good rounds, I feel like I'm, playing as good as I ever have. So just got to find a way to, keep battling and just wait for it to happen.
Game 2 of the Stanley Cup Finals. Edmonton scored their first goal of the finals on this goal from Matthias Ekholm in the first period. That put the Oilers up 1-0. Florida answered in the second period. Nikola fires it into the back of the net. That tied the score at 1. The Panthers put it away in the third period. Evan Rodriguez gets it back, shoots and scores. Panthers are up 2-1. Great top shelf goal here. Florida added 2 more goals, 1 more from Rodriguez and an empty netter to win it 4-1. The Panthers lead the series 2-0. It now goes to Edmonton for the Game 3.
A lot of Utahns have their eye on hockey this season.
I saw that the Stanley Cup playoffs, the TV ratings are way high this year. I think because all the Utahns are watching.
I think so. It really does seem like over the past couple seasons, NHL has really been gaining more and more popularity.
It has. It definitely has. And
I think the new franchises like Vegas and now Utah.
Great time.
Certainly helping
to get involved here in Utah.
Thanks, Jeff. We'll be right back.
3, 2, 1, let's go!
Yeah, big scissors and all. Today, Governor Cox was on hand for a ribbon cutting for a state-of-the-art business resource center in Eagle Mountain. It's called the Launchpad. It's designed to support and foster entrepreneurship and small business development.
It was sponsored by Meta, and we were able to bring a social media lab, podcast recording studio, and the most amazing resources for our small local businesses.
Sounds pretty cool. If you want to apply for the Launchpad, go to the website that's on your screen right there. It's eaglemountainchamber.com/launchpad. Who knows? The next multi-million-dollar idea could be created in that room.
Tech
Pretty
just
cool.
keeps booming here in Utah. It's crazy.
Thanks everyone for watching. Stick around. QuickCast is up next.